Hello and welcome to Sounding Board, a community access television production of Seroptimus International of Novato. My name is Madeline Peters, and my guest here today is Dr. Mohammed El Majdoubi. But before we begin our conversation on the effect of digital technology on the teenage brain, I'd like to just tell a word about Seroptimus. Seroptimus International is an organization whose purpose is to help advance the status of women and girls, both locally and globally. Sounding Board is like our community access television production, and we've been hosting programs on Sounding Board for many, many years. Dr. Mohammed El Majdoubi, I'm glad to have you here today. And again, we've had you come and speak previously, and your background as a neuroscientist, you can talk on many topics, but you're here today to talk about the effect of digital technology on, you said specifically the teenage brain, but I'm going to open this up to you and you can go anywhere you want with it. You have a knack for telling very interesting stories to help make very complex science very attainable.
Well, thank you, Madeline, for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be here. And yes, as a neuroscientist, with an interest actually in plasticity, which is my background, in the fact that the brain is a plastic organ. It's not the way we used to think, that it's completely a solid entity and we're born with whatever we got and it's never going to change. So I never thought that I'm going to use this expertise to see and look into the effect of computers and the internet and things on how the brain develops. So when I say the teenage brain, it's really the developing brain. You can look at it as different levels. The adult brain is still developing. It's just developing less than an infant's brain.
An infant brain.
But
yeah.
we know also that the teenage brain is still something that's being changed. And so the topic itself came to me because I'm a father of 3 digital natives, and
Yes, that's right. That's the new descriptor.
The descriptor.
Yeah.
That's how it was coined by Mark Pensky, actually. The digital natives and the digital immigrant, which is ours.
Yes, yes.
So the digital natives are someone who talks technology as a first language, and we are the one that speak it as a second language with the accent and everything that comes with it. And so, and it's true, the kids intuitively know how to figure out how things work. I mean, they don't know what it is to read instructions on how to do things. They go to it and they do it. And I've seen them firsthand, both in the classroom as an educator. Every day I'm watching my students interacting with their new world, which is a digital world, and they seem to swim in it just like a fish in the water. I've seen that as an outsider, as an educator, and seen my students, but then I get to experience it at home, watching my kids sometimes taking my computer or taking their mom's iPhone.
And how old are your kids? Because I think that's important to know.
I have a 7-year-old Nina and a 4-year-old Layla, and then 1-year-old Zach. He's still not doing anything with that, but he seems to be attracted to a lot of technology.
Okay, he likes the toys.
He likes the toys, especially anything that, for now, he's into wheels, the male nature of it. And so even at this age, I've seen them only recently started using a little bit the computer and going into some simple games. We just wanted to know how they interact with it. And so one day I'm watching it and I see them, say they're playing, and then half an hour passes and then an hour passes, and I look at them and they are really on it for a while, these are the 2 daughters talking to each other and trying to explain a little bit, let's push this and let's push this and see how it works.
4 and 7. And they're engaged in conversation.
Sitting, watching a screen, and both of them trying to intuitively find out what button can turn this on and off.
Well, so much for short attention spans with little kids.
Well, that's what I got. When I looked at that, and I at some point I asked them, why don't you go play outside a little bit, get a break?
Yes.
With all the things that we have heard. I mean, it's in the popular press, you read about things about technology that's actually doomsday for this new generation. And because of my kids playing, I wanted to understand a little bit what is its impact. Why are they so attracted to this technology, and what impact does it have on them? And the first thing I did was to look a little bit what are the studies that are being done. Is it just my kids that are this way engaged and interested and seems to spend a lot of time on it? And I found out there was a study done by the Kaiser Family Foundation in 2010 in which they looked at the time used by kids in schools in terms of how much they are exposed to digital media. And they found out that the average is about 8 hours per day spent by kids using the internet and online games just for entertainment. This is not counting any of the time they use the internet to learn.
8 hours a day.
8 hours a day outside the school time. This is at home, after school, in the morning before school, and even late at night.
And then what age may I like?
This looks at the age between 8 and 18. So it includes some of teenagers.
Yeah.
And minority students actually tends to spend even an hour additional than the average. And so there are different explanations for that and why it is. What is the fact that the numbers show that they spend a lot of time, and 8 hours is a huge amount of time to be spending on in front of the screen. Because for one reason is that the brain of children is in the process of developing its adult shape, and the brain is so malleable and so plastic that anything can change it, can impact it. And so during studies done, carried out recently at NIH, and National Institute of Health, looked at a longitudinal study. So they brought kids from the age of 5 until the age of 20 every year and several times a year to come for a scan to see where is their brain and how it is developing. And they revealed in 2004, as of recently, that they revealed actually the fact that after birth, the myth was that the brain is fixed prenatally, and when we're born with what we got, and then all that's happened during life is to lose those nerve cells.
That's right, yes.
Or that nothing will impact me, I'm all done. Now we know that even after birth and through adolescence, the brain still keeps forming new connections and new pathways in a way that correlates exactly with what the person is doing. And so this goes into the age of 40. And so usually the end or the process of maturation of the brain is linked to middle-age crisis, which is a funny thing. Because at some point we reach our peak of mental activities and wisdom. And so we start looking up at everything we have done before. Is that actually was a good call that I did before I was smart? And so that's when we challenge every idea and every decision we have taken.
Is at that point?
At that point. That's when usually the brain have finished its pathways.
So the plasticity is no longer as malleable as it was until that point, that midlife. So
midlife is when everything that needs to be formed in our brain
is done. Okay.
And so we reach that time of good judgment, good strategizing. And there is a reason why, for instance, the president cannot be elected before a certain age. It's the wisdom age is about the middle age crisis. And so you see a lot of judges, a lot of politicians do get elected at that level, which is when we think that they are mature enough to take on their job.
And probably that means, whatever their behavior is, has been up to that point, people can have some sort of confidence in the fact that that's what you see is what you're going to get.
Yeah, they're going to get some wise decisions taken by someone who has a full brain, let's say. But before then, everything can impact the way our brain changes. And so it is reasonable to speculate that the kids that are spending that much time in front of screens playing with digital media will definitely, in some way, have a brain that fits with that kind of lifestyle. It's like in a forest. If you use a path again and again and again, you reinforce it. You make it stronger, cleaner, more defined. Paths that are not used grow weed and get lost.
Right.
And so that's exactly the brain, how the brain works. Those are the pathways we reinforce, and we only reinforce pathways that are used or in association with which we do on a daily basis. So it is true, and it is normal, and it is reasonable to speculate that the changes that are happening in the brain will be probably changes that are associated with the parts of the brain that are used for online digital media.
So it's like becomes a super specialized area.
We specialize in that. We lose some other things that
Yes.
we are not, and so we usually lose things that we're not exposed to.
Okay.
So if someone is not exposed to social interaction and everything, they're going to miss on the cues of how to read someone's face, how to read someone's mind, and things like that. So that's how it started, that these kids, because of their plastic brain, at the time when it's going through a massive developmental rearrangement, are sitting in front of technologies that are actually impacting the way that brain is done. So far, that's okay. But then the press took that idea, the popular press, and pushed it a little bit ahead and further to talk about doomsday.
Yes.
That suddenly the new technology and the impact of this technology on the brain is this new evolutionary process. It's a milestone in brain development not seen since Neanderthal discovered the use of tool. And so, okay. And then they went ahead to say, well, but the result of this is negative because it's actually having, we're losing everything we have learned through millions of years of evolution.
So the popular press, but this came out of the popular press.
This came as a popular press as an interpretation of one study. So
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't a study which is the origin of this. So the speculation about this that, and that's what I went to look for, is where is this interpretation coming from? So the point is, okay, this is a time where the brains of our children are changing in a negative way, meaning we're losing all the focus and the attention and the ability to read a 300-page book in one sitting is gone. And so I went to look at a little bit review what has been said, and so I found, for instance, the Monthly magazine, which is a progressive publication, in 2008 published this big paper by Nicholas Carr saying that Google makes us stupid.
I remember. Yes.
Second one, just recently in 2012, that Facebook makes us lonely and shallow. And then it was taken even worse by Newsweek. That says direct. Internet creates psychosis, craziness, and addiction. With basis or not. That's what I went to. So as I was reading this, I became this very anxious father of the three
Of course,
ages.
yeah.
I'm like, what am I allowing my kids to do at home? The guilt of parenting. We're guilty about everything. And then when you get something like that, it's just, it's a state of mind of the parenting issues. So I went that's where I wanted to use my background as a neuroscientist. I was like, if I'm going to let some reporter decide on the scientific values of what the technology is doing to the brain, I would rather go review the science and see whether their claims are based on anything. And so once you start getting into the field, it's really a jungle.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I focused on very serious studies, peer-reviewed studies that are published in professional neuroscience journals with reputation.
Yes.
With a good reputation. It's still ranked in the hundreds of publications. And so as I looked at it, I looked at the three claims: that is the internet really making us stupid, and is online social media is making us really lonely, and then let's say online gaming, whether that's making us very aggressive. And so historically, the first study that actually looked at the brain with an MRI was led by Gary Small in UCLA, the University of California in Los Angeles. And what he did is he invited two groups of internet users. One that was really veteran users. They excel at it. And they took a group of people that have not been exposed a lot to the internet. And they asked them to be scanned while they are doing a Google search. So when they look at the scan, the initial scan, they looked at the brain and they saw that the brain of the people who are used to using Google has a pattern of mental activity that you can see through an MRI that's different from the naive users.
Yes. So they're looking at tracking the tracking activity in the brain. So
what areas in the brain are used to do a Google search as you're doing it, which is what the MRI, functional MRI does. It's to look at what your brain is doing in terms of blood supply and activity as you're doing something with your as a behavior.
Okay.
And so the initial result were that the brain of the two groups does not look similar while they are doing the same task.
Okay.
Okay, so the pattern is not
Different.
different.
Okay.
They took those naive users and told them to go for 5 days, use the internet for 1 hour a day, and then come back for a scan. And so within 5 days, 1 hour a day of using Google, they came back and they were scanned again with the veteran users. And this time the pattern was similar. And so you see the scan of the people that get trained for 5 hours is similar to the brain of the users that have been using Google for years. And so they concluded with this big study called Your Brain on Google, and followed by a book called iBrain, that internet rewires your brain in 5 hours. And so imagine parents.
Of course.
They're not used to, rewiring is scary for everybody.
Oh, sure.
And 50% of Americans actually spend the night next to their smartphone, just like a teddy bear. So you're into this, wow, we're exposed, we have this 24/7 digital lifestyle. Everything we do it online, our entertainment is online, our connectedness to the world is online. And so if this is 5 hours only can rewire your brain this way, what happened if you spend more?
But the assumption was that it was a negative impact.
That's exactly, they haven't said whether it's negative or not. They just say rewire.
Uh-huh.
Now, when you don't know about rewiring, you would just think about it as negative.
Exactly. You make that, you come to that conclusion.
Yeah, just like the big assumption. What they haven't said is that if you do mental maths,
Yes.
your brain gets rewired exactly the same way as if you were doing Google. So just learning arithmetics can do it. Learning to play piano, your brain does not look exactly like before and after you play the piano. If you just think about learning piano, not even doing it, your brain gets rewired. So what they should have noticed is every event in our daily life, in order for us to integrate it and understand it, it has to rewire my brain, otherwise I'm not getting it.
Okay. So it doesn't make any difference what it is, really.
Rewiring happens all the time.
Okay.
A joke makes you laugh once, but not the second time, because your brain has been rewired, and the second time you're like, I know about this.
Right.
It's old story. So it is not that the question that should have been asked is this rewiring good or bad in the long term?
Yes.
And that we would not know for now. That's study, those results that have to do with long term are not available yet.
Right.
I'm glad research is being done, but there's nothing available right now that is actually a longitudinal, which means that you have to look at the same person today, in 5 years, and in 20 years for scientists to say the change have happened. Because the problem is who you use as a control. Who do you compare these people to?
Right.
It has to be someone the same age from a previous generation. Well, unless you have frozen someone that I don't know of, that experiment cannot go. And so the question really is the impact positive or negative? And that question was not asked that way. And so this is what the first study that fed into the whole frenzy of everybody running, oh my God, it rewires our brain. And because it rewires our brain, the assumption was that we're becoming very stupid.
Stupid and antisocial and
aggressive.
Yeah,
so that first one, I just wanted to know this stupid thing.
The stupid,
so,
okay.
But we're not in the dark, because there are experiments going on in the world, human experiment going on in the world. Let's take South Korea. South Korea is the most wired country on earth. They live in the internet era. Every single household is connected to the internet. In South Korea, schools have integrated the internet into their curriculum. They teach their kids through an internet. So they go search for different animals that actually breastfeed. This is the kind of examples they do. Tests in math, they can do it on the internet. So they, instead of fighting the internet, they incorporated it as another learning tool for the kids, in which the kids not only just consume the info, they contribute to it.
It seems as though it's set up with that kind of integration. It's finding the information, it's having to sift through it, and it's actually having to kind of reform or rephrase. So it's like they're really kind of absorbing and integrating it as one would expect one to do, other than just plagiarizing something.
Yeah, well, they are very active, and they have teachers around that look at what they're doing, how they are doing it, and teaching them how to use it. You don't do this, you don't do this, this is a risky thing. So you learn skills that are good for them to navigate in their own online world, which is as dangerous as the offline world.
Yes.
So there's nothing more that you would find on the internet that's you get people trying to contact you. It's never a good idea to look for a friend on the internet. That's online. Online use is usually when you reinforce existing friendship, for instance. But Korea, the way they did, I looked at a little bit how their students are. Well, you would be pleased to know that in the last 10 years, they have ranked top of the world in math, science, and reading.
Oh, my goodness.
And so, okay, at least we have, it doesn't mean that they are intelligent. They're just not stupid.
You're right.
Because you have to see that the social intelligence as well is important. The emotional intelligence is important. But I'm not saying they are smart. I just say here's an example in which they're not dumb.
That's right.
At least compare with.
Well, and you have it's like a state-run program and an impact on a variety of students within a certain country.
And it's controlled and it's an experiment going on. So we can look at that and say, what would happen to us in 10 years? Well, with South Korea in terms of the internet is ahead of the US by that much. So it's easy to look at those and figure out what's going to happen to us. And it does not look that negative. So there is there's nothing that says systematically internet is this evil thing that's going to make us stupid. So that was the first thing. Second thing I looked at was, well, social media. Are they really working on, are they good, bad, doing any impact? And so what I looked at was the Facebook per se. Science tells us that our brain cannot handle more than 150 meaningful relationships at any time. You just cannot spread thin your brain to more than this kind of numbers. And so anything beyond 150 should be shallow and superficial and not really a friendship, okay? Then I looked at the average of number of friends that Facebook users have, and they are within the 50.
Really?
Average 50. They consistently talk with 7 to 10 at the most.
So the impression was that you're friending all these people and it's beyond what anyone can handle. And you're saying there's well within normal.
Those are all just names on a screen and it's not. This is consistent with the fact that it seems like kids are using it to just an extension of the activities they have during the day with their own friends. We used to go home and call. Now they go home and text.
Okay.
Or they go home and play an online game together with their friends.
So it's just reinforcing the connection in a different way than maybe it's reinforcing existing connections for the most part. And the medium has changed.
Yeah, the medium
That's all.
has changed.
That's all.
It's a different technology, but ultimately it's to hang out with your friends later. Of course, any behavior of, as I told you, someone who tried to look for new friends, and it's really a risky behavior to be looking for people that you don't know online, because everybody can look different from what they are, and there are predators around, and but to go like that and just generalize very quickly that actually all social media is dangerous and you're going to be bullied and everything. The students that get bullied online get bullied in the classroom as well. So it's the same kids at risk.
Right.
It does not diminish the risk of the online, but I always bring it back to it's exactly like the offline world. The second thing that's important about, let's say, social media is now there are 3 billion users. This is the first time where 3 billion people can connect to each other and exchange ideas. And as a result of this, there's what we call the emergence of a global mind or a global brain. It's the same way the brain is connected. Nerve cells are connected to each other, and as a result, they create this emergent system that's the mind. Imagine 3 billion people talking to each other through a network that's actually online, similar to what the brain is. So an idea can actually be thrown in and discussed, and as a result, you get all these open sources. You get something like Wikipedia. I mean, it killed Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yes, yeah.
With something that nobody writes their name on, how they put in the info. You know how much work it is to actually write an article on Wikipedia, and you don't even get the credit for it. I was looking for pictures around for a lecture that I gave at TED. They do not even think copyright is important. Everything is online for free. I mean, you Google anything and the images come, and who did this? This is really creative. I should find the person who did it. No, it's open source. It's their contribution.
Right, right. We have about 3 minutes left on our program. I want to make sure that you hit all of the points.
So
it's like I think I need to do a series with you where you can go into these different categories. But
yeah, so this is one impact of, let's say, social media. Is this new global brain, which we saw at play last spring in the Arab Spring.
Yes.
They were able to get together and bring down some of the bloodiest dictators.
And so that it's like that global brain
had worked to defeat the old school of dictatorship that I cannot allow you to meet together. The third part, and so this is the important, is the online gaming. The online gaming is what has been usually is the riskiest thing you can do online. Why? It's because it's very engaging. It's something that if you play, you'll get hooked on it. It's just that engaging.
That powerful.
Yeah, and so, but when I looked at it, science showed that if you play pro-choice games, you gain more empathy. If you play dangerous and aggressive games, you gain more aggressivity. It's just, it's the aggressive behavior comes from, or the empathy comes from what games are you using. The problem is because it's engaging, people tend to get hooked on it and spend sometimes, which in Newsweek they compare it to heroin. Now, addiction to the internet and online gaming has not been determined as a real addiction and will not appear as such in the DSM-5, which is a reference book for psychiatrists who determine whether something is a mental
illness. Yeah.
So it's not the technology that's the problem. It's the way we use it. And for, as I said, for this new problem, we can just bring old ways we did things. We did not have streets before. We did not have cars running in them. But we learned how to teach our kids how to cross a street. We go with them and say, look left and look right, and there's nothing go. You go quickly, then look again, and you do it the first time, then you watch it do it. Can you cross the street? And once you know that they know how to cross the street, we leave them alone.
Right, so the guidance is important.
Why can't we apply this to the internet? And that's what it's parenting, it's education. We should not be afraid of technology and throw it with the water of the bath. You know, I always use the baby.
The baby in the bath.
We don't want to do that. It's just we can actually teach them how to self-regulate, go with them on the internet, teach them how to navigate the internet safely, and just
stop.
Chill out.
Chill. Mohammed, it's always a pleasure to have you here. I need to have many more conversations with you.
It would be my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Seroptimus International and to Novato Public Access Television. This is Sounding Board. My guest today was Dr. Mohammed El Majdoubi on the plasticity of the digital brain and the teenager. Thank you very much and good day.